Hello guys, we're going to be watching a video today on how to convert between fractions, decimals, and percents. So the first thing I need you to do is go ahead and in your notebook paper, go ahead and draw 3 lines like the bottom of this video like I'm showing you to separate into 3 parts, and then label it so that it looks like the following. So on the top part we're going to put fraction decimal, on the middle we're going to put decimal, and then on the right percent. On the very bottom, on the left, we're going to put fraction, and on the right, we're going to put percent. And once you're done with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and start with the top. So right now, we're going to be looking at how to go from a fraction to a decimal. Okay, guys, to continue to change from a fraction to a decimal, we have a couple steps that we need to look at. When we're changing from a fraction to a decimal, the first step we're going to do is to divide the numerator by the denominator. Another way to do that is to change the bottom to out of 100. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say that they gave you guys the example of 5/8. If I was going to do the first step, I'm going to divide the numerator. Remember, the numerator goes inside the box, by the denominator, which goes outside the box. Okay, now I can divide. So then I know that 8 does not go into 5. 8, I bring down a 0. 8 goes into 50. 8 goes into 56 times. So that gives me 48. I subtract, that gives me 2. 8 goes into 20 twice. And 8 goes into 45 times. So my decimal would be 0.625. Now another way to do this is, if you have a fraction that is easy to change the denominator into 100, I would do that to make it easier on myself. So for example, 3/25. I can easily change that into out of 100, so I don't have to do that much math. So in this case, since I can change that denominator to 100, I can multiply this by 4, and I know that this is 12 out of 100. So 12 hundredths, I can easily write that as a decimal. That would be 0.12. Again, you can only do that when you can change the denominator to out of 100. When we're going from a decimal to a fraction, this is actually a lot easier, a lot more simpler than from a fraction to a decimal. The first step that we do is say it. So say it the correct way. In this case, instead of saying 0.137, we actually say 137 10,000ths. So since that's the way I say it, that's exactly how I'm going to write 137 10,000ths. Now, of course, I would always try to see if I can simplify this, but if there is no way to simplify, that would be my final answer. And that's it for decimals. Let's take a look at decimals to percents. For decimal to percent, we use what's called Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is going to help you know what to do with the decimal. All Dr. Pepper says is, if I'm going from a decimal to a percent, I'm going to go twice to the right, move the decimal twice to the right, and I will get now my percent. The opposite way, from percent to decimal, says the same thing. To go from a percent to a decimal, I will go twice to the left now, and I will get the correct decimal of what percent I had. So let's say that I had 0.725. To go from that to percent, I'm going to do Dr. Pepper, which tells me to go from decimal to percent, move it twice to the right. So this would be 72.5%. Now let's say that they gave me 25.3%. To change that to a decimal, I would follow Dr. Pepper, which tells me to go twice to the right, so I would go 1, 2, and so I have 0.253. That would be the correct form of writing that as a decimal. Let's go ahead and take a look now at converting from a fraction to a percent. When converting between a fraction to a percent, the first thing we need to do is to change it to a decimal. That's the first step. Or if you can make the denominator 100, you can also do that to easily turn that into a percent. After we've changed it to a decimal, we would use Dr. Pepper. So let's go ahead and apply that. In this case, this fraction, I cannot change easily the denominator into 100, so I'm going to have to change it to a decimal. If I don't remember, I could go ahead and go back to the beginning of the video to remember how to change from a decimal. If you remember, guys, the numerator goes inside the box. We're going to be dividing, and the denominator goes outside the box. So now I can divide. How many times does 7 go into 2? Well, it doesn't, so I put a 0. I add a 0. 7 goes into 20 2 times. Bring down a 0. 7 goes into 6 8 times. It's because 7 times 8 gives me 56. So 56. 7 goes into 40 5 times, and I can go ahead and stop right there for the sake of time. So that would be my decimal. Now for those that you can make the denominator out of 100, that would be like the other example I gave you where you had the 25 in the denominator. Let's say you had something like 3/4. Okay, well this is one of those that you should automatically know, but this is also one that you can easily change into 100 by multiplying the denominator by 25. So if I do that, that is 75 out of 100. So I know that this is 100%. That it is 75%. That's what I meant to write. Going back to this one, guys, this one, we weren't actually done because we changed it to a decimal, but they wanted a percent. So now the last step is to use Dr. Pepper. So Dr. Pepper tells me to move it twice to go from decimal to percent, so I move it twice, and my final answer would be 28.5%. Okay, let's look at how to go from percent to a fraction. The first step to do that is to write it out of 100. So we have 36%, we would write 36 out of 100%. And then we just pretend that the percent sign is not there and use it like a fraction. So 36 out of 100, I'm going to see if I can simplify. I know that I can divide both by 2. That is going to give me 18 on top and 50 on the bottom. And I see that I can divide further by 2, so I'm going to go ahead and divide again by 2. That gives me 9 out of 25. And I believe there's nothing more that you can simplify this into, so then this would be my final answer. For my 36%, it's written as 9/25. And that's it, you guys.